The phone rang sharply, slicing through my quiet Tuesday morning ritual of coffee and email checks. Glancing at the screen, I sighed inwardly when I saw Cynthia's name lighting it up. Conversations with my stepmother Cynthia were never enjoyable. "Good morning, Cynthia," I answered calmly, preparing myself for whatever unpleasantness awaited. "I'm calling to inform you," she began, voice dripping with triumph, "that I've officially sold the house. The buyers signed yesterday. They'll be moving in next weekend. Perhaps now you'll finally grasp the concept of respect. My name is Emily Foster, and the home Cynthia smugly spoke about was the one I'd grown up in, the one my father had lovingly preserved until he passed away 2 years earlier. But Cynthia had no idea how far ahead Dad had planned. "The house?" I replied coolly, feigning surprise. "You mean the home my dad spent his entire life restoring?" "Stop playing naive, Emily," she snapped. "You've been freeloading there ever since your father died. Those days are done. I found buyers who know the true value of the property." I hid my smile, recalling my father's lawyer, Mr. Donovan, and our private discussion shortly after Dad's funeral. Details Cynthia was completely unaware of. "Are you certain it's all above board?" I asked, innocently. "Of course it's legal," Cynthia scoffed. "As his widow, I'm within my rights. Maybe this experience will finally teach you not to interfere with my plans." Her bitterness was predictable. 3 months earlier, I'd stopped Cynthia from demolishing the historical charm of our home, the oak banisters Dad had restored by hand, the vintage floors he'd polished himself, and the stained glass panels he'd treasured. She had wanted everything updated, devoid of memories. "I hope you got what the house is truly worth," I remarked lightly. She bristled. "Never you mind. Just ensure you're out by next Friday. The new owners want immediate access." I imagined her smug grin, picturing me frantically packing up my life. She had no idea how wrong she was. "I appreciate the notice," I replied pleasantly, ending the call before dialing Mr. Donovan. "Emily," he greeted warmly, "I was expecting to hear from you." "She did exactly what you predicted," I informed him. "She actually sold the place." "Fascinating," he chuckled. "I'll take care of it. Would you like me to explain the situation to the buyers? They shouldn't suffer because of her impulsiveness." "Absolutely," I agreed. After our conversation, I wandered slowly through my home, touching each spot filled with memories. The alcove where Dad had read bedtime stories, the window seat overlooking the garden he'd meticulously tended. Each corner whispered reminders of the life we'd shared. Cynthia had married Dad when I was 24, initially playing the charming stepmother role flawlessly. However, her facade soon cracked, revealing a woman hungry for control. Gradually, she attempted to distance Dad from me, belittled our bond, and relentlessly pushed for changes in the house. Near the end of his life, Dad had called me into his study one quiet afternoon, while Cynthia was busy with another extravagant spa day. "Emmy," he'd said softly, using his favorite nickname for me, "I need you to trust me on something important. Cynthia isn't who you think she is, but I've put protections in place. After I'm gone, visit Mr. Donovan. He'll guide you." I'd wanted details, but Dad looked exhausted. Weeks later, he was gone. Cynthia wasted no time asserting her perceived dominance, disposing of Dad's belongings, altering rooms without my consent, behaving as if the house was exclusively hers. But unbeknownst to her, Dad had anticipated every move she'd make. The meeting with Mr. Donovan had unveiled a web of clever legal protections. Despite what Cynthia believed, Dad had carefully ensured the house was secure, protecting not only the legacy he built, but my future as well. My phone buzzed with a message from Cynthia. "Leave the keys on my desk by Thursday. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Emily." Smirking slightly, I replied, "Everything will turn out exactly as it's meant to, Cynthia. Trust me." She didn't respond, no doubt confident she'd won. But the reality was about to hit her harder than she could possibly imagine. My father had often reminded me that patience revealed people's true colors. Cynthia had certainly shown hers, and now it was my turn. I spent the morning sorting through old photos found tucked away in Dad's study. One captured us painting the house, laughing despite paint-covered faces. Another depicted Dad pruning his prized roses in the garden. Cynthia had once threatened to uproot those roses, calling them outdated, just as she'd tried to erase everything that reminded her of Dad. My phone rang again, Mr. Donovan, Dad's lawyer. Everything's in place, he assured me. The buyer's attorney has already been informed. They're quite upset, but relieved they found out in time. When will Cynthia find out? I asked. Any minute now, he replied. Their lawyer is drafting a very direct letter to her as we speak. Do you want me present when she gets it? I considered briefly. No, let her handle this alone. She needs to understand exactly what she's done. Be prepared, Emily, he warned gently. Someone like Cynthia doesn't handle public embarrassment well. He had a point. Cynthia was all about appearances, and the humiliation of being exposed for attempting to sell a property she didn't own would be devastating for her. But that was precisely the lesson Dad intended. It didn't take long. By mid-afternoon, my phone was lighting up with missed calls and increasingly frantic texts from Cynthia. The final message was blunt and furious. What have you done, Emily? I was sitting peacefully in Dad's rose garden when she screeched into the driveway, her black Mercedes nearly hitting the curb. Storming toward me, she waved what I presumed was the lawyer's letter. You manipulative little brat, she shrieked, her polished exterior crumbling instantly. You planned this all along. Remaining seated, I kept my tone calm. Planned what, exactly, Cynthia? Don't pretend innocence, she snapped, shoving the letter towards me. The trust? The ownership transfer? You and Donovan orchestrated this behind my back. No, I corrected quietly, rising to face her. My father set this in motion years ago. I simply followed through on his wishes. Her face twisted angrily. Your father adored me. He'd never betray me like this. Did he really? I questioned softly, meeting her gaze directly. Or did he allow you to believe he did? The blood drained from her cheeks as my words sank in. She was beginning to understand that the man she'd thought she'd fooled had actually outsmarted her completely. The house was never fully his, I explained calmly. He transferred ownership into a protected trust long before marrying you. I'm the sole beneficiary. You had no authority to sell. You're lying, she whispered hoarsely, though her confidence wavered. Feel free to check the public property records, I offered, almost kindly. Dad ensured everything was transparent for exactly this moment. Cynthia's hands shook visibly, crumpling the lawyer's notice. The buyers are threatening legal action. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? About as humiliating as trying to evict your stepdaughter from her rightful home, I responded evenly. Or as humiliating as pretending love just to claim someone's inheritance. She recoiled, stunned by my bluntness. You don't know anything about your father and me. I know more than you imagine, I told her. Dad explained it all. The prenup you refused to sign, those mysterious withdrawals you made, the people you secretly met when Dad was sick. Her eyes widened, her voice a shaky whisper. He knew? Every detail, I confirmed softly. He chose patience and planning over confrontation. Looks like I've inherited that trait. Cynthia stumbled backward, heels sinking into the garden dirt, designer clothes stained. This isn't over, she tried, her voice weak. It is, I said firmly, holding up my phone. By the way, this entire conversation has been recorded. Donovan has everything necessary for the file on your fraudulent attempt to sell a property that wasn't yours. For the first time, Cynthia stood speechless. Surrounded by Dad's roses, she looked utterly defeated. Let me be clear, I stated plainly. Leave this house, leave me alone, and leave my father's memory intact. If you ever pull something like this again, every dirty detail goes public. The affairs, the money, every dark secret. Her voice trembled with anger. You wouldn't dare expose it. Think of your beloved father's precious legacy. I held her gaze steadily, echoing the calm resilience I'd inherited from Dad. My father's reputation was built on honesty, Cynthia. He can survive the truth. Can you? Her eyes narrowed, calculating her next move before she finally relented, shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine, she snapped bitterly. You can keep the house and savor your little triumph, but don't think this means you've won. I've already won, I replied evenly. The moment Dad saw you for who you truly were, I won. She turned on her heel, leaving deep marks in the grass with each furious step, dropping the lawyer's notice onto the damp garden path as she stormed back to her car. Picking up the letter, I unfolded the crumpled pages. The legal jargon was dense, but the message was crystal clear. Cynthia had no legitimate claim to the property, and her attempt at selling it was outright fraud. A text appeared on my phone from Mr. Donovan. How did she react? I typed quickly. As badly as we expected, but I think she's finally done. His reply came immediately. Your father would be proud. He always knew you were stronger than anyone realized. Gazing around the garden at Dad's cherished roses, the walls of the house we had lovingly preserved, I realized how thoroughly he had planned everything. Cynthia believed she'd taught me a lesson in humility. Instead, she had learned a harsh lesson about underestimating the quiet strength of someone she thought powerless. The weeks after Cynthia's departure brought a sense of relief to the house. I spent time undoing her reckless attempts to modernize everything, gently restoring each room to reflect the warmth and memories Dad had instilled there. One quiet evening, sorting through boxes in Dad's study, I found a sealed envelope marked in his unmistakable handwriting. It was dated mere days before he passed away. My breath caught as I tore it open. My dearest Emily, if you're reading this letter, it means everything I suspected has come to pass. By now, Cynthia has tried and failed to seize our home. You must know that everything I did was to protect you. A year into our marriage, I saw Cynthia's true intentions. The illness that weakened me wasn't natural. I had Mr. Donovan quietly investigate. Cynthia was adding something subtle yet harmful to my tea. Not enough to raise alarm, but sufficient to appear as a natural decline. I needed Cynthia to believe she'd succeeded, to feel confident enough not to look deeper. Forgive me, Emily, for the distance I maintained in those final months. I needed her to see me as vulnerable and isolated. There's something important you must retrieve. Check the loose brick in the study fireplace. You'll understand once you find it. Strength isn't always confrontation. Sometimes it's quiet patience, waiting for the perfect moment to act. With all my love, Dad. Tears blurred my vision as I processed every word. Suddenly, all those confusing, painful months made sense. The quiet evenings, Dad insisted on having tea alone with Cynthia. The cryptic warnings. I quickly found the loose brick, easily sliding it out. Behind it was a USB drive with another note. Give this to the authorities when the time is right. Plugging the drive into my laptop, I watched in stunned silence as hidden camera videos revealed Cynthia secretly spiking Dad's tea, meeting with other men, and openly discussing her plans once he was gone. Every betrayal, recorded meticulously. Hands trembling, I called Mr. Donovan. James, I found Dad's message, and the evidence he mentioned. After a pause, his voice came softly. Are you ready to move forward with pressing charges? I hesitated, absorbing the gravity of it all. The evidence was clear, damning. Attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. Cynthia would lose everything. Not yet, I finally said. Let's hold on to this as leverage. For now, just knowing it exists is enough. Exactly as your father predicted, James chuckled softly. He always admired your ability to wait until precisely the right moment. The following morning, a large legal envelope arrived from Cynthia's lawyer. It contained formal documents relinquishing all claims to the property and Dad's estate, with a handwritten note attached. You win, Emily. I'm leaving town. Consider this my surrender. Just keep the rest to yourself. She'd found the cameras, no doubt searching frantically after our confrontation. But she realized the truth too late. The proof in my possession was merely insurance, its mere existence enough to keep her away permanently. Standing in Dad's study, surrounded by memories of the life we'd created, a profound sense of peace settled over me. Even from beyond the grave, he had protected me, giving me a final lesson on patience and quiet strength. In the garden, Dad's roses bloomed brighter than ever. Each petal felt like a whisper from him. The strongest roots grow quietly, unseen, until they're ready to bloom. Strength didn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it meant stepping back, quietly observing, and allowing others to reveal the truth behind their facades. Cynthia had taught me how easily people could lie, how convincing their masks could be. But Dad had given me something far more precious. the ability to see beyond those masks, to defend what truly mattered, and above all, to achieve victory without sacrificing my integrity. The house remained standing, exactly as Dad had envisioned it, a testament to quiet determination, love, and a justice served subtly yet decisively. I often imagine him somewhere smiling proudly, knowing I'd internalized his last and greatest lesson. As for the hidden USB drive, it stayed safely tucked behind that loose brick in the study fireplace, silently watching over the secrets that were better left hidden, at least for the time being. After all, Dad always reminded me, the right moment makes all the difference.